The smell hit me first. Eggs, bacon, something sweet like cinnamon. I walked into my kitchen and found Tessa standing at the stove, humming to herself like she owned the place, which lately she seemed to think she did. "Morning, Jared." She turned, holding a plate piled high. "I made you something special." I checked my watch. 7:15. My appointment was at 8:30, and the instructions from the clinic had been clear. Nothing by mouth after midnight. Not even water. "I appreciate it, Tessa, but I can't eat this morning. I have a medical test. I need to fast." Her smile didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. "Oh, right. The test." She set the plate down on the counter with just enough force to make a point. "I woke up early to do this for you, but okay." "I didn't ask you to." "No, but I thought it would be nice. I thought maybe you'd appreciate someone caring about you for once." There it was, the twist, the way she could take a simple statement and turn it into a weapon. Evan appeared in the doorway, still half asleep. "What's going on?" "Nothing." Tessa's voice went soft, wounded. "I made your dad breakfast, and he doesn't want it." "He has a test, babe. He told us yesterday." "I forgot." She looked at the plate, then at me. "I just wanted to help." I kept my voice level. "The food won't go to waste. I'll take it to the hospital. Your mother's working the night shift, right? She might want it." Tessa blinked. "My mom?" "Lumi. She mentioned she barely gets time to eat during her shifts. This way, someone enjoys your effort." For a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Calculation, maybe? Or concern. Then the smile returned. "That's sweet of you, Jared. Really thoughtful." She wrapped the plate carefully, added utensils, tucked everything into a container. The whole time, she kept glancing at me like she was waiting for something. I took the container. "I need to get going." "Don't forget to thank my mom for me," Tessa called after me. "Tell her I made it special." In the truck, I set the container on the passenger seat and started the engine. My phone buzzed, a text from Evan. "Don't embarrass her today." I stared at the message. Not, "Hope your test goes well," or "Let me know how it goes." Just a warning, a reminder that somewhere along the line, I had become the problem in my own house. The clinic waiting room was nearly empty. I checked in, confirmed I had followed the fasting protocol, and watched the nurse make a note on her screen. 7:52. Everything documented. Everything clear. The test itself took less than 30 minutes. By 8:40, I was back in my truck, heading toward the hospital where Lumi worked. The breakfast container sat beside me, still warm. The hospital staff entrance was around the side, away from the main lobby. I had been here before, dropping off forgotten lunches or picking up Lumi when her car was in the shop. She had always been decent to me, blunt but fair, not like her daughter. I found her near the nurse's station, finishing up notes from the night shift. She looked exhausted. "Jared, what are you doing here?" "Tessa made breakfast this morning. I couldn't eat it because of a medical test, so I thought I'd bring it by for you." She looked at the container, then at me. "That's kind of you." "She wanted you to know she made it special." Something changed in Lumi's expression, a tightness around her eyes. "Tessa made this?" Yeah, this morning. She was up early." Lumi took the container but didn't open it. "When did she make it?" "I walked into the kitchen around 7:15. It was already done." She nodded slowly. "And you haven't eaten any of it?" "No, fasting orders. Why?" "No reason, just checking." But her voice said otherwise. A younger nurse, mid-30s with a name tag that read Renee Park, approached. "Lumi, we need you in room 6. "Be right there." Lumi handed me back the container. "Actually, let me take this to the break room. Hospital policy. We can't have outside food near patient areas." She walked off, and I followed at a distance, watching her set the container on a table in the staff break room. She opened it carefully, looked inside, then closed it again. I was about to leave when I heard it. A sharp cry from somewhere down the corridor. Not a scream, exactly. More like shock. Pain. Staff moved quickly. Renee appeared, walking fast but controlled, the way trained people do in emergencies. Lumi came out of the break room, her face tight. I stood there, hands trembling, watching the corridor fill with voices and movement. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. Renee saw me. "Sir, you need to step back." "What happened?" "I can't discuss patient information. Please wait in the lobby." Lumi caught my eye. She didn't say anything, but the look she gave me said enough. She knew, or suspected. And whatever it was, it involved that breakfast. I left the hospital, got back in my truck, and sat there for a long time. My phone buzzed again, another text from Evan. "Tessa's upset. She thinks you're mad at her." I didn't reply. I started the engine and drove to work, my hands still shaking. At the construction site, Caleb Morse, my foreman, took one look at me and poured a cup of coffee. You look like hell. Medical test this morning. How'd it go? Fine. The test was fine. He waited, knowing there was more. Something happened at the hospital after. I don't know what yet, but something. Caleb set down his coffee. You want to talk about it? Not yet. He nodded. When you're ready. I spent the rest of the morning running through the timeline in my head. Tessa making breakfast, the way she insisted I take it, the way she asked me to tell Lumi she made it special, the look on Lumi's face when I said Tessa's name, the cry in the corridor. My phone buzzed again at lunch. This time it wasn't Evan. It was a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Ravel, this is Renee Park from the hospital. We need to ask you a few questions about the food you brought in this morning. Can you come back this afternoon? My stomach dropped. What kind of questions? Just standard procedure. We're documenting an incident, and your name came up. An incident. Yes, sir. Nothing to worry about, but we need a statement. Can you come in around 2? I'll be there. I hung up and stared at my phone. My name had come up, in an incident report. Less than an hour after I delivered a breakfast Tessa had made. I thought about that text from Evan. Don't embarrass her today. He had known, or suspected, and he had warned me anyway. I finished my coffee and headed back to the site. Whatever was happening, it was just starting, and I had a feeling it was about to get much worse before it got better. But one thing was already clear. I wasn't backing down. Not this time. The afternoon dragged. I went through the motions at work, measuring boards, checking angles, making sure everything was square, but my mind kept circling back to the hospital, to that cry, to the way Lumi had looked at the container. Caleb found me in the supply shed around 1:30. You heading out? Yeah. Hospital called. They want a statement. About the food? Yeah. He crossed his arms. Jared, I've known you 15 years. You're the most careful man I've ever met. If they're asking questions, it's not because you did something wrong. I know. Then why do you look worried? I set down the measuring tape. Because someone else might have. He understood immediately. The girlfriend? Maybe. You think she set you up? I don't know what to think yet, but the timing's strange. Strange how? She made me breakfast on a morning she knew I couldn't eat, insisted I take it, asked me to tell her mother she made it special. Then less than an hour later, there's an incident at the hospital involving that food, and my name gets mentioned. Caleb let out a low whistle. That's more than strange. Yeah. You want me to come with you? No, but thanks. Call me after. Let me know what they say. I drove to the hospital with the windows down, letting the cold air clear my head. The parking lot was busier than it had been that morning. I found a spot near the back and walked to the main entrance. Renee met me in the lobby. She looked professional, composed, but I could see the wariness in her eyes. Mr. Ravel, thanks for coming back. Of course. She led me to a small office near the administrative wing. The room was plain, a desk, 2 chairs, a computer. She gestured for me to sit. I need to confirm a few details about the food you brought in this morning. Okay. She pulled out a form. You arrived at approximately 8:45? Yes. And you delivered a container of food to Lumi Ward, stating it was prepared by her daughter, Tessa Ward? That's correct. Did you prepare any of the food yourself? No, Tessa made it. I just delivered it. Why did you bring it here? I had a medical test that required fasting. Tessa had already made the breakfast when I came downstairs. I didn't want it to go to waste, so I offered to bring it to Lumi. Did Tessa know you were bringing it here? Yes, I told her that morning. She said it was thoughtful. Renee made a note. Did she ask you to deliver it, or did you offer? I thought about that. I offered, but she seemed fine with it. She even asked me to tell Lumi she made it special. Renee's pen paused. She specifically asked you to say that? Yes. Did you find that unusual? At the time, no. Looking back, maybe. She wrote something longer this time. Mr. Ravel, did you consume any of the food? No, I was fasting. Did you open the container at any point? No. Tessa wrapped it, and I delivered it exactly as she gave it to me. Did you stop anywhere between your home and the hospital? Just the clinic for my test, but the food stayed in my truck. So no one else had access to it? No. Renee set down her pen and looked at me directly. Mr. Ravel, I need you to understand that what I'm about to tell you is preliminary. We're still investigating. My pulse quickened. Okay. A patient in the recovery ward consumed food from the container you delivered. Within an hour, that patient experienced severe gastrointestinal distress. We're running tests to determine what caused the reaction. Is the patient okay? Stable now, but it was serious enough that we had to document everything. And my name is in the report because I delivered the food. Yes, but Lumi has already provided a statement confirming that you were fasting and couldn't have known there was anything wrong with the food. She also noted that she didn't consume it herself because she was cautious. Cautious about what? Renee hesitated. That's between Lumi and her statement, but I can tell you that your cooperation today helps clarify the timeline. What happens now? We finish the investigation. If the tests show something concerning, we may need to speak with Tessa directly. She won't like that. That's not my concern. Patient safety is. I nodded. Is there anything else you need from me? Not right now, but keep your phone on. We may have follow-up questions. I stood. Thank you for being straightforward. Mr. Ravel, one more thing. If you have any reason to believe the food was tampered with, or if there's any context that might help our investigation, now is the time to mention it. I thought about the past few weeks. The pressure, the hints, the way Tessa had been building a narrative about me being difficult, unstable, hard to live with. I don't have proof of anything, I said carefully. But I will say this. Tessa has been trying to push me out of my own house. She's been making comments to other people that I'm not managing well, that I need help, that maybe I should move somewhere smaller. Renee's expression didn't change, but I saw her hand move to her notepad. And this morning, I continued, she made a point of making sure I told Lumi that she made the breakfast special, like she wanted her name attached to it. Why would she want that? I don't know, but if I had to guess, I'd say she was expecting a different outcome. Renee wrote something down, then looked up. Thank you, Mr. Ravel. That's helpful context. I left the hospital and sat in my truck for a long time, staring at the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. Caleb. How'd it go? They're investigating. A patient got sick from the food. They wanted to confirm I didn't eat any of it and that I delivered it exactly as Tessa made it. Did you tell them about her pushing you out? I mentioned it, gave them context. Good. You need to protect yourself, Jared. I know. I drove home slowly, taking the long way, thinking through everything. When I pulled into the driveway, both Evan's car and Tessa's were there. Inside, I found them in the living room. Tessa looked up as I walked in, her expression carefully neutral. How was your test? Fine. Good, she smiled. Did you take the breakfast to my mom? I did. What did she say? She thanked me. Tessa's smile widened. I'm glad someone appreciated the effort. Evan looked between us, sensing the tension. Everything okay? Everything's fine, Tessa said quickly. Your dad's just had a long day. I looked at her, really looked, and I saw it. The calculation, the performance. She was waiting to see if I'd mentioned the hospital incident, waiting to gauge my reaction. I'm going to lie down, I said. Sure, we'll keep it quiet. I went to my room and closed the door. Then I pulled out my phone and started making notes. Oh, everything I could remember. Times, words, expressions, the way she'd wrapped the container, the way she'd asked me to tell Lumi she made it special. I didn't know what was in that breakfast, but I knew one thing. Tessa had wanted something to happen, and I was supposed to be the one blamed for it. The house had always been mine. I bought it 12 years ago, after the divorce settled, and I needed a place that felt like a clean start. 3 bedrooms, a garage I turned into a workshop, a kitchen that got decent light in the mornings. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Paid off, titled, solid. Evan moved back in 2 years ago. Temporary, he said, just until he got back on his feet after a job fell through. I didn't mind. He was my son. You help family. Then Tessa showed up. It started with weekends, then a few nights a week, then she had a drawer, then a closet. Then she was rearranging the living room and telling me the couch I'd had for a decade didn't fit the space. I didn't fight it. I figured Evan was happy, and maybe she'd grow on me. People adjust. Relationships take work. All the things you tell yourself when you're trying to keep the peace. But peace isn't the same thing as surrender. I started noticing the little things first. The way she'd walk into a room and immediately start adjusting something. Moving a picture frame, repositioning a lamp, like she was marking territory. Then came the language. Evan's place instead of your house. We're thinking about painting the hallway instead of asking if I minded. You really should update the kitchen, like it was a group decision. And Evan, somewhere along the way, stopped asking and started informing. Tessa and I are having people over Friday. Not Can we have people over, or would you mind? Just a statement. A fact. I let it slide. I told myself it was normal. Young couples need space. They need to feel like they have a home. But this was my home. At work, I was respected. Caleb asked my opinion before making calls. The crew listened when I explained why we were doing something a certain way. I built things that lasted, and people trusted me to do it right. At home, I was background noise. Tessa had a way of talking about boundaries that really meant erasing mine. She'd say things like, everyone needs their own space, while taking over the garage to store boxes of her things. She'd talk about respecting people's routines, while rearranging my schedule to fit hers. And Evan echoed her, word for word, sometimes, like he'd memorized a script. One night, I overheard her on the phone in the hallway. I wasn't trying to listen. I was just coming back from the workshop, and her voice carried. He'll move out. He just doesn't know it yet. I stopped, stood there in the dim light of the hallway, listening. No, Evan doesn't see it, but he will. Once we frame it right, he'll understand it's better for everyone. His dad is stuck in the past. This house could be something if he'd just let go. She laughed, soft, confident. The laugh of someone who thought they'd already won. I went to bed that night and lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Not angry, just clear. Suddenly everything made sense. The little comments, the rearranging, the way she positioned herself as the reasonable one and me as the obstacle. She wasn't just staying in my house, she was planning to take it. The next morning, I set a boundary. A real one. Tessa, I need you to stop moving my things without asking. She looked up from her coffee, surprised. I'm just trying to help. The place looks better when it's organized. I'm sure it does, but it's my place, and I'd like to be asked first. Evan tensed. Dad, she's just trying to make it nice. I understand that. I'm asking for respect, that's all. Tessa's face shifted. Not anger, something colder. Calculation. I didn't realize you felt that way. I thought we were all family here. We are, which is why I'm asking. Asking! She repeated the word like it tasted bad. Okay, I'll ask. But her tone said she wouldn't, and the look she gave Evan said he'd hear about this later. That night, Evan knocked on my door. Hey, can we talk? I sat up. Sure. Tessa feels like you're being kind of controlling. She's just trying to help, and you're making her feel like she's not welcome. I looked at him, really looked, and I saw it. The way he couldn't quite meet my eyes. The way his words sounded rehearsed. Evan, do you believe that, or is that what she told you to say? He flinched. I just think we could all get along better if you were more flexible. Flexible? Yeah. You know, not so rigid about everything. I nodded slowly. This is my house, Evan. I'm not being rigid. I'm being clear. She's my girlfriend, Dad. If you can't respect her, I don't know what to tell you. I do respect her. I'm asking her to respect me. He left without another word, and I knew the battle lines had been drawn. Not by me, but I was standing on them now, whether I liked it or not. Over the next few weeks, Tessa collected stories, little moments she could twist into evidence of my difficult nature. I didn't share the leftovers she wanted. I went to bed too early and was too loud in the mornings. I didn't laugh at her jokes. I was distant. She started dropping hints to Evan that I seemed off, that maybe I needed help, that maybe the house was too much for me to handle alone. She was building a case, slowly, carefully, and Evan was buying it. I realized something then. If I reacted emotionally, I'd lose. If I stayed calm, I'd be called cold. Either way, she'd twist it, so I chose clarity. I started keeping records, not obsessively, just clearly. Bills in my name, title documents in the safe, texts saved, dates noted. At work, Caleb noticed the shift. You're quieter than usual. Just thinking. About? How to protect what's mine without looking like the bad guy, he nodded. Sometimes you can't avoid looking like the bad guy. Sometimes you just have to be right. One Friday night, Tessa suggested we all go out to dinner. Family bonding, she called it. We ended up at a diner near the highway, the kind of place with vinyl booths and too much ketchup. She was in a good mood, talking about plans for the house. When we renovate the bathroom, and once we repaint the exterior, Evan smiled along, nodding. And then she slipped. When we take over the house, she stopped. Blinked. Corrected herself. I mean, when we make the house feel more like ours. I didn't react. Just took a sip of water and met her eyes. She knew I'd heard it. And she knew I'd understood. The rest of the dinner was tense. Polite, but tense. Evan tried to fill the silence with small talk, but it didn't work. On the drive home, Tessa sat in the back seat, staring out the window. I could feel her watching me in the rearview mirror. She wasn't scared. Not yet. But she was recalibrating. I parked in the driveway and got out without a word. Inside, I went straight to my room and closed the door. Evan knocked an hour later. She didn't mean it the way it sounded. I know exactly how she meant it. Dad, Evan, I'm tired. We'll talk later. He left, and I sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded, thinking. She had shown her hand, not fully, but enough. And now I knew what I was dealing with. Not just entitlement, not just manipulation, a plan, a long game, and I was standing in the way. I pulled out a notebook that night and started writing. Not everything at once. Just observations. Patterns. The first entry was simple. Tessa moved in without asking. Evan brought her for a weekend 2 years ago. She never left. The second entry was more specific. She refers to the house as Evan's place. Never mine, never ours. Always his. I kept writing, page after page, times she'd rearranged furniture without permission, conversations where she'd hinted I was difficult, moments where Evan had parroted her exact words. By the time I finished, I had a clear picture. This wasn't random. It wasn't careless. It was deliberate. She was positioning herself as the homeowner, positioning me as the guest, and slowly, carefully, building a narrative that would justify pushing me out. I closed the notebook and put it in the safe with the property documents. Then I went to bed. But I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about that phone call I'd overheard. He'll move out. He just doesn't know it yet. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer, and I'd been too busy trying to keep the peace to see it. The next morning I woke up early and made coffee. Tessa came down around 7, already dressed, looking at her phone. "Morning." "Morning," I said. She poured herself a cup, leaned against the counter. "I've been thinking. Maybe we should set up some house rules. So everyone knows what to expect." "What kind of rules?" "Just basic stuff. Like if someone's having friends over, the other person gives them space, or if someone's cooking, they get the kitchen to themselves. Things like that. This is my house, Tessa. I don't need rules to use my own kitchen." Her smile tightened. "I'm just trying to make things easier for everyone. It's already easy. People ask before they rearrange things. People respect the homeowner. That's the rule." "The homeowner." She set down her cup. "You keep saying that like it's some kind of power move. It's not a power move, it's a fact. A fact you like to remind people of. Only when they forget." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she picked up her cup and walked out of the kitchen. I heard her go upstairs, heard the bedroom door close, heard the muffled sound of her voice, probably calling Evan. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Dad, can you try to get along with her? She's really hurt." I didn't reply. At work that day, I told Caleb about the conversation. "She wanted to set house rules," I said. "In my house." Caleb shook his head. "That's bold." "That's the plan. Make me feel like a guest so I'll eventually leave." "You gonna let her?" "No." "Good. Because if you back down now, you'll never get your house back." I spent the rest of the day thinking about next steps. I couldn't just react. I needed to be proactive. I needed to understand my rights, my options, and the legal process for removing someone who wasn't on a lease, who wasn't paying rent, and had no claim to the property. That evening, I stopped by the county housing office. It was nearly closing time, but the clerk was patient. "I have someone staying in my house who I'd like to leave. What are my options?" "Are they on a lease?" "No." "Do they pay rent?" "No." "How long have they been there?" "About a year. Maybe longer." The clerk pulled out a pamphlet. "If they're not on a lease and not paying rent, they're considered a guest. But after a certain period, they might argue they've established residency. To be safe, you should give written notice. 30 days is standard. And if they refuse to leave? Then you'd file for formal eviction, but that takes time and money. The written notice is your first step. Keep a copy. Send it certified mail if you can." I took the pamphlet. "Thank you." "One more thing," she said. "Document everything, dates, conversations, any agreements. If it goes to court, you'll need proof." I left the office with the pamphlet and a clearer picture of what I needed to do. But I wasn't ready to serve notice yet. I needed more. I needed to understand what Tessa was really planning. And I needed to make sure that when I acted, it was final. The next week was quiet on the surface. Tessa and I moved around each other carefully, like dancers who knew the choreography but hated the music. Evan stayed out late most nights, probably avoiding the tension. But underneath the quiet, I was working. I started documenting everything, not just the big moments, the small ones too. Every time Tessa referred to the house as ours or Evan's, every time she made a decision without asking, every time she positioned me as the obstacle. I also started paying closer attention to her patterns. When she made phone calls, who she talked to, what she said when she thought no one was listening. One afternoon, I came home early from the site. The front door was unlocked, which was normal, but I heard voices in the living room. Tessa's voice and a woman's voice I didn't recognize. I stayed in the hallway, listening. "He's stubborn," Tessa was saying. "I've tried to be patient, but he acts like we're intruding." "Have you talked to Evan about it?" "Of course, but Evan feels stuck. He doesn't want to upset his dad, but he also wants to move forward with me." "So, what are you going to do?" "I'm working on it. I think if we can just get him to see that downsizing would be better for him, he'll agree. He's getting older. This house is a lot to maintain." "How old is he?" 48, but he acts older, set in his ways, you know?" The other woman laughed. "Good luck with that." "Thanks, I'll need it." I waited until I heard the front door close, then walked into the living room. Tessa looked up, startled. "Jared, I didn't hear you come in." "I just got here. Who was that?" "Just a friend. We were catching up." She seemed interested in my house. Tessa's smile faltered. "We were just talking." "About how I should downsize." Her face went blank. "You were listening." "I live here. I don't need permission to walk through my own hallway." She stood, grabbing her purse. "I'm going out." "Tessa?" She turned. "Stop telling people I need to downsize. Stop telling people I'm difficult. And stop planning my future without me." "I wasn't—" "Yes, you were. I heard you." She stared at me for a long moment, then walked out without another word. That night, Evan came to my room again. "Dad, Tessa says you accused her of gossiping about you." "I didn't accuse her. I told her to stop. She's just worried about you." "No, Evan. She's worried about this house. There's a difference." "Why do you always assume the worst about her?" "Because she keeps proving me right." He left, frustrated, and I heard him and Tessa talking in low voices for the next hour. I didn't care anymore. I'd tried to keep the peace. I'd tried to be flexible. I'd tried to ignore the small violations in the hope that things would settle, but they weren't settling. They were escalating, and I was done pretending otherwise. The next day, I made an appointment with a lawyer. Not for a consultation, just for information. I wanted to know my rights, my options, and what I could do to protect my property. The lawyer's office was downtown, above a coffee shop. The woman who met with me was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and direct. "Tell me the situation," I explained. Evan moving in, Tessa following, the gradual takeover, the comments about downsizing, the way she positioned herself as the decision-maker. The lawyer took notes, nodding occasionally. "Do you have documentation?" "Yes. Bills, title, mortgage statements. All in my name." "Good. What about Tessa? Does she contribute financially?" "No. She doesn't pay rent. She doesn't pay utilities. She buys groceries sometimes, but that's it." "So she's a guest." "Technically, yes." "Then legally, you can ask her to leave. Give her written notice. 30 days is standard, but check local laws. If she refuses, you file for eviction." "Will that hold up if she claims she's been there long enough to establish residency?" "It might complicate things, but if you have clear documentation that she's never paid rent, never signed a lease, and never had any formal agreement, you should be fine. Just make sure everything is documented." I thanked her and left with a folder full of information. That night, I started drafting the notice. Not to serve yet, just to prepare. I wanted every word to be clear, every detail to be accurate, because when I finally handed it to her, I wanted there to be no room for argument. Over the next few days, Tessa ramped up her campaign. She started making comments to neighbors. I heard about it through Caleb's wife, who ran into her at the grocery store. She said you've been forgetful lately, that she's worried about you living alone. I felt a cold anger settle in my chest. I'm not forgetful, and I'm not living alone. She is. I know. I just thought you should know what she's saying. I thanked her and added it to my notes. Forgetful, worried, living alone. She was building a narrative, making it seem like I was declining, like I needed help, like the house was too much for me. And once that narrative was established, it would be easy to suggest I move somewhere smaller, somewhere easier to manage, somewhere that wasn't mine. I realized then that this wasn't just about the house. It was about control. She wanted to control the space, control the story, control Evan, and I was the only thing standing in her way. At work, I told Caleb about the lawyer visit. You're really doing this? Yeah. Good, because she's not going to stop on her own. I know. When are you serving the notice? Not yet. I want to wait until I have everything lined up. I don't want to give her any chance to twist this. Caleb nodded. Smart. That Friday, Tessa announced she wanted to host a dinner. For family, to clear the air. Evan looked hopeful. That sounds good. I knew what it was. Another performance. Another chance for her to position herself as the reasonable one. Who's coming? I asked. Just us and my mom. Lumi. Of course. She was bringing in reinforcements. Fine, I said. When? Next Friday. I'll be here. Tessa smiled. Great. I think this will be good for all of us. But I saw the calculation in her eyes. She was planning something, and she expected Lumi to help her execute it. What she didn't know was that I was planning too. And I had a folder full of documentation ready to go. I spent the week preparing. Not just the legal documents, the timeline, the evidence, the hospital incident, everything. I organized it all in a single folder. Clear, logical, irrefutable. By the time Friday came, I was ready. Tessa spent the day cooking, cleaning, setting the table like she was hosting a magazine shoot. Evan helped, looking nervous but hopeful. I stayed out of the way, reviewing my notes one last time. At 6, Lumi arrived. She hugged Tessa, greeted Evan, then turned to me. Jared. Lumi. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know what. We sat down to dinner, and for the first few minutes, everything was polite. Small talk, weather, work. Then Tessa set down her fork. So, I wanted us all to talk tonight about the living situation. Here it was. Evan shifted in his seat. Lumi stayed quiet, watching. I think we've all felt the strain lately, Tessa continued, and I think it's because this house isn't really working for any of us anymore. Meaning? I asked. Meaning maybe it's time to make a change. Evan and I have been talking, and we think it would be better if you found a place that suited you better. Something smaller, easier to manage. I set down my own fork. This house suits me fine. Dad, Evan started. Let me finish. I looked at Tessa. You're suggesting I leave my own house so you and Evan can stay. I'm suggesting we all think about what's best for everyone. And you think what's best for me is to leave. I think you're holding on to something that's become a burden. I think you'd be happier with less responsibility. Interesting. Tessa's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means you've been planning this for a while. The comments about downsizing, the hints that I'm not managing well, the stories you've been telling people that I seem confused or forgetful. I never said that. You told the neighbor. You told Caleb's wife. You've been building a narrative, Tessa. Slowly, carefully, making it look like I'm the problem. Evan looked between us, confused. Dad, she's just trying to help. No, Evan, she's trying to take my house. The room went silent. Tessa's face flushed. That's ridiculous. Is it? You said it yourself at the diner. When we take over the house. Remember? She blinked. I didn't mean it like that. You meant it exactly like that. Lumi spoke up. Tessa, is this true? Mom, he's twisting things. I'm not twisting anything. I pulled out the folder and set it on the table. I'm stating facts. Tessa stared at the folder. What is that? Documentation. And I opened it. The folder landed on the table with a soft thud that seemed to echo in the silent room. Tessa's eyes fixed on it like it was a coiled snake. Documentation, I repeated. Let's start with the basics. I pulled out the first document. Property title. Dated 12 years ago. Sole owner, Jared Ravel. I slid it across the table. Evan glanced at it, then looked away. Tessa didn't touch it. Mortgage statements, all paid in full. Last payment made 4 years ago. Owner, Jared Ravel. Another document across the table. Utility bills, electric, water, gas, internet. All in my name. All paid by me. I stacked them neatly in front of Tessa. Property tax records, paid annually, by me. Lumi leaned forward, looking at the documents. Her face was unreadable. Now, I said, pulling out another section, let's talk about residency. Tessa's hands clenched on the table. Evan moved back in 2 years ago. Temporary arrangement while he got back on his feet. No lease, no rent, just father helping son. I looked at Evan. He couldn't meet my eyes. Tessa started staying here about 18 months ago. Weekends at first, then more frequently, then permanently. No lease, no rent, no formal agreement. I buy groceries, Tessa said. I help around the house. Buying groceries doesn't make you a resident. It makes you a guest who contributes. That's cold, Dad, Evan said. That's legal fact, and here's another fact. I pulled out my notebook. For the past 6 months, Tessa has been systematically repositioning herself as the decision maker in this house. I opened the notebook and started reading. March 15th. Tessa tells me we're repainting the hallway. No question, just information. March 22nd. Tessa rearranges the living room without asking. When I mention it, she says the house looks better this way. April 3rd. Tessa refers to the house as Evan's place in conversation with friends. April 18th. Tessa suggests I should update the kitchen, speaking as if it's a shared decision. I kept reading. Date after date, quote after quote, a pattern so clear it couldn't be denied. Tessa's face had gone pale. You've been keeping a diary about me. I've been documenting behavior that affects my property and my rights as a homeowner. That's creepy. That's protective. Lumi spoke up. Let him finish. I nodded to her and continued. May 7th. I overhear Tessa on the phone saying, he'll move out. He just doesn't know it yet. Evan's head snapped up. She didn't say that. Yes, she did. I was in the hallway. She was talking to someone about her plans for this house. Tessa's voice rose. You were eavesdropping. I was walking through my own hallway. You were planning my eviction from my own house. I wasn't. May 20th. Dinner at the diner. Tessa says, when we take over the house. Then corrects herself. The silence that followed was absolute. Evan stared at Tessa. Did you say that? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I was just talking about making it feel more like home. By taking it over, I said. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? She didn't answer. I pulled out another document. Last week, Tessa tells a neighbor I've been forgetful. Tells Caleb's wife I seem confused and she's worried about me living alone. Lumi's expression hardened. Tessa. I was concerned. I'm 48 years old. I run a construction site. I manage crews, budgets, and timelines. I'm not forgetful, I'm not confused, and I'm not living alone. She is. Tessa stood up. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. Yes, you do, Lumi said sharply. Sit down. Tessa sat, her face flushed with anger and something else. Fear, maybe. I wasn't done. Now let's talk about the hospital. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Tessa's eyes widened. What about the hospital? I pulled out the next set of documents. The morning of my medical test. You made breakfast. I told you I couldn't eat because I was fasting. You insisted I take it anyway. Said I should give it to Lumi. I slid the clinic's fasting instructions across the table. I followed these instructions exactly. Nothing by mouth after midnight. I went straight from home to the clinic, then to the hospital to deliver your breakfast. Renee's incident report came next. Less than an hour after I delivered that food, a patient in the recovery ward ate it and became severely unwell. Severe gastrointestinal distress, hospitalization. The incident was documented, and my name was listed as the person who delivered the food. Evan's face had gone white. What? The hospital called me in for a statement. They needed to confirm I hadn't eaten any of the food and hadn't tampered with it. I looked at Lumi. Your mother can verify this. All eyes turned to Lumi. She nodded slowly. It's true. Jared brought the food to the staff entrance. I took it to the break room because hospital policy doesn't allow outside food near patient areas. When he told me Tessa made it, I got cautious. Cautious about what? Evan asked. Lumi didn't look at her daughter. I know Tessa, and I know she doesn't do things without a reason, so I set the food aside. A newer staff member, trying to be helpful, gave it to a patient. That patient got very sick. What was in it? Evan's voice was barely a whisper. We don't know yet. The labs are still running, but whatever it wasn't accidental? Tessa shook her head emphatically. This is insane. You think I tampered with the food? I think you created a situation, I said carefully, where I would be blamed for something harmful. My name on the delivery. Your food making someone sick, and you specifically asked me to tell Lumi you made it special. Because I wanted her to know I was thinking of her. Or because you wanted your name attached to it for a different reason. What reason? So that when something went wrong, you could point to me as the delivery person while maintaining you were just being thoughtful. You expected a different outcome, Tessa. You expected me to look bad. You didn't expect the wrong person to consume it. And you didn't expect your mother to be cautious enough to avoid it entirely. Tessa's hands were shaking. You can't prove any of that. I don't need to prove intent. I just need to prove facts. And the facts are these. You made food on a morning you knew I couldn't eat. You insisted I take it. You asked me to tell your mother you made it special. Someone got sick. My name is on the incident report. And you've been spending the last 6 months trying to build a narrative that I'm unstable, forgetful, and need to leave my own house. I leaned forward. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. The room was completely silent. Evan looked at Tessa like he'd never seen her before. Tell me he's wrong. He is wrong, Tessa said, but her voice cracked. He's paranoid. I have documentation for everything I just said. Every date, every quote, every incident, it's all here. I tapped the folder. And now we're going to talk about what happens next. Tessa's eyes flashed. You can't kick me out. Actually, I can. I pulled out the final document, the one I'd drafted with the lawyer's help, the formal notice to vacate. You are not on any lease. You do not pay rent. You have no legal claim to this property. As of right now, I am giving you formal written notice to vacate the premises. You have 30 days. I slid the notice across the table. Tessa stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. You can't do this, she said again, but her voice was weaker now. I already have. The notice is legal. It's documented. And if you refuse to leave, I will pursue formal eviction through the courts. Evan. She turned to him, desperation creeping into her voice. Tell him he can't do this. Evan looked at the documents spread across the table, at the timeline, at the incident report, at his father's face. Did you do it? He asked. Did you try to make him look bad? No, I swear. Then why did you ask him to tell your mom you made the breakfast special? She didn't answer. Tessa, why? Still nothing. Evan stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. I need some air. He walked out the back door, leaving the three of us sitting there. Lumi spoke first. Tessa, tell me the truth. What was in that breakfast? Nothing, just regular food. Then why did you make sure Jared told me you made it special? I don't know. I was just being nice. You're never just nice. Lumi's voice was hard. You always have a reason. Tessa's eyes filled with tears. Why is everyone attacking me? Because you've been caught, I said quietly. You thought you could push me out slowly, build a narrative, make me look like the problem. And when that wasn't working fast enough, you tried something more direct, something that would put my name on an incident, something that would make people question my judgment. That's not true. Then explain the breakfast. She couldn't. Lumi stood up. I think you should start packing. Mom? I said start packing. Tessa looked between us, realizing she'd lost. The tears were real now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration, of a plan falling apart. She grabbed her purse and walked upstairs without another word. Lumi and I sat in the silence for a long moment. I'm sorry, she said finally. I should have seen this coming. You did. You were cautious with the breakfast. I was cautious because I know my daughter. She's always been strategic, but I didn't think she'd go this far. She thought she could control the situation, control Evan, control me. And when she couldn't, she escalated. I nodded. Lumi gathered the documents, looking at each one carefully. You're very thorough. I had to be. If I'd confronted her without proof, she would have twisted it. She still might. Let her try. Everything's documented now. Evan came back in through the back door. His eyes were red. Is it true? He asked me. All of it? All of it. He sat down heavily. I didn't see it. She didn't want you to. I defended her. I told you to be more flexible. I made you feel like you were the problem. She's good at what she does. I'm sorry, Dad. I know. We sat there, the three of us, as the reality settled in. Upstairs, I could hear Tessa moving around, opening drawers, closing them, the sounds of someone who'd underestimated her opponent and lost. What happens now? Evan asked. She leaves. You stay if you want. But things change. How? You respect this house. You respect me, and you figure out what you want, not what someone else wants for you. He nodded slowly. Lumi stood. I should go talk to her. If you want. She headed upstairs, and Evan and I sat in silence. I really didn't see it, he said again. I know. That was the point. How long have you been planning this? Since I overheard her on the phone, the he'll move out conversation? That was months ago. Yeah. You've been playing the long game. I've been protecting what's mine. He looked at the documents still spread on the table. This is a lot of evidence. I needed it to be. She's smart. If I'd come at her without proof, she'd have turned it around on me. And now? Now she knows she lost. Upstairs, we heard raised voices, Lumi and Tessa arguing. The words weren't clear, but the tone was. Evan winced. This is bad. This is necessary. 20 minutes later, Lumi came back downstairs. Her face was set, hard. She's packing. She'll be out by Sunday. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me. This is on her. Lumi gathered her things. Jared, I meant what I said earlier. I should have seen this. I should have warned you. You did warn me. At the hospital. That was enough. She nodded and left. Evan and I sat at the table for a long time, not speaking. Finally, he said, I think I need to figure some things out. Take your time. Are we okay? I looked at him. My son. Manipulated, but not malicious. Confused, but not cruel. We're okay, but we have work to do. He nodded. That night, I lay in bed and listened to the house settle. Listened to Tessa moving around upstairs. Listened to Evan in his room, probably staring at the ceiling like I was. It wasn't over yet, but the hardest part was done. I'd stood my ground. I'd protected what was mine, and I'd done it the right way, methodically, legally, with evidence that couldn't be disputed. Tessa had underestimated me. She thought I'd be easy to push around, easy to confuse, easy to remove. She'd been wrong. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray. I woke to the sound of Tessa's car starting in the driveway. Through the window, I watched her load boxes into the trunk, her movements sharp and angry. Evan stood on the porch, hands in his pockets, saying something I couldn't hear. She didn't respond, just slammed the trunk and drove off. I went downstairs to find Evan still on the porch, staring at the empty driveway. She's staying with a friend, he said without turning around. She'll come back tomorrow for the rest of her stuff. Okay. She says you're going to regret this. I'm sure she does. He finally turned. Dad, I need to ask you something. Go ahead. Did you plan this whole thing? The dinner, the evidence, the timing? I thought about how to answer that. I documented behavior. I protected my rights. And when she tried to force a confrontation with her mother there to back her up, I was ready. So, yes. Yes. He nodded slowly. That's kind of brutal. Would you have preferred I let her push me out of my own house? No, I didn't think you had it in you. I build things for a living, Evan. Structures that have to withstand pressure. You learn to be thorough. He went inside, and I followed. The house felt different. Lighter, somehow. Like something heavy had been lifted. I spent the morning cleaning, not because Tessa had left a mess, but because I needed to reclaim the space. I moved furniture back to where I wanted it. Reorganized the kitchen, put things back the way they'd been before she'd started rearranging. Evan watched from the doorway. You're erasing her. I'm restoring order. Same thing. Maybe it was. Around noon, my phone rang. Caleb. How'd it go? She's leaving. 30-day notice served. She take it well? About as well as you'd expect. Good. You did the right thing. I know. You sound tired. I am. Want to grab lunch? Yeah, that'd be good. I met Caleb at the diner where we usually went. The same place where Tessa had slipped and said, when we take over the house. He ordered coffee, looked at me across the table. You look like you've been through a war. Feels like it. But you won. Yeah. So why do you look like that? I stared at my coffee. Because part of me wonders if I could have handled it differently, if I could have talked to her, set boundaries earlier, avoided all this. Could you have? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe she would have just adjusted her approach and kept pushing. Some people don't stop until they hit a wall. She hit a wall. Yeah, she did. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Caleb said, What about Evan? He's confused, hurt, but I think he'll be okay. You gonna talk to him? Eventually. Right now, he needs space to process. Smart. The diner door opened, and I glanced up out of habit. A woman I didn't recognize walked in, scanned the room, then walked directly to our table. Jared Ravel? I tensed. Yeah. I'm Amanda Price. I'm a friend of Tessa's. Caleb's hand moved slightly, ready to intervene if needed. What can I do for you? I asked. I just wanted to say that what you did last night was cruel. Tessa told me everything. How you humiliated her in front of her mother. How you kicked her out with no warning. I gave her 30 days' notice. That's more than required. She's devastated. That's unfortunate, but this is between me and her. She cares about Evan. She was trying to build a life with him. She was trying to build a life in my house, without my permission. Amanda's face flushed. You're heartless. I'm protective. There's a difference. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked out. Caleb let out a low whistle. That's new. She's recruiting allies, building sympathy. Will it work? With some people, maybe. But anyone who knows the facts will see through it. You gonna let her spin her version? I'm going to let the facts speak for themselves. That afternoon, I got a text from Lumi. Thank you for last night. I know it wasn't easy, I replied. Thank you for being fair. A minute later, another text. Tessa is very angry. Be prepared. I am. Sunday arrived, and with it, Tessa's return. She came with 2 friends this time, Amanda and a guy I didn't recognize. They loaded boxes and bags into 2 cars while Tessa directed them. I stayed inside, watching through the window. Evan helped carry things down. He looked miserable. When they were almost done, Tessa came to the door. I opened it before she could knock. I need to talk to you. About what? About Evan, about us, about all of this. There's nothing to talk about. Yes, there is. You embarrassed me. You made me look like some kind of criminal in front of my own mother. I stated facts. You twisted everything to make me look bad. I presented documentation. If that made you look bad, that's on you. Her eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time, I thought. I loved him, you know. I really did. Maybe, but you loved this house more. That's not true. Then why did you say you were going to take it over? She didn't answer. That's what I thought. You know what? Her voice went cold. You haven't won anything. Evan's going to realize what you did. He's going to see that you manipulated all of this. I documented behavior. That's not manipulation. You set me up. No, Tessa, you set yourself up. I just made sure everyone saw it clearly. She stared at me, and I saw the moment she accepted defeat. The moment she realized there was no argument she could make, no story she could spin, that would undo what had been revealed. I hope you're happy, she said finally. I'm relieved. She walked back to her car without another word. Amanda and the other friend loaded the last boxes. Evan stood on the porch, watching them go. Tessa's car pulled out of the driveway. Amanda's followed. The guy in the third car gave me a long look before driving off, and then they were gone. The house was quiet. Evan came inside, closed the door, and leaned against it. It's really over. Yeah. I don't know how I feel. That's normal. He looked at me. Was she right? Did you manipulate all of this? I prepared for it. When she forced the confrontation, I had evidence ready. Is that manipulation? I don't know. Think about it this way. If I hadn't documented everything, what would have happened? She would have told her version, made you look like the bad guy. Exactly. I protected myself with facts. That's not manipulation, that's survival. He nodded slowly. I think I need some time alone. Take all the time you need. He went upstairs, and I stood in the living room, looking around at my house, my space, my home. It felt right again. But there was still one more thing I needed to do. I pulled out my phone and called Renee at the hospital. Mr. Ravel, I was actually going to call you. About the incident? Yes. The lab results came back. My pulse quickened. And? There were traces of a laxative in the food, a significant amount, enough to cause severe distress in someone with a sensitive system. I closed my eyes. So, it was deliberate. It appears so. We've documented everything. The patient is recovering, but they're considering filing a complaint. Against me? No. Your statement and the fasting documentation cleared you. The complaint would be against whoever prepared the food. Tessa Ward. We can't confirm that publicly, but yes, if they move forward, they'll need to speak with her directly. Thank you for letting me know. Mr. Ravel, I have to ask, did you suspect this? I suspected she wanted something to go wrong. I didn't know the details. Well, now you do. If you need this information for any legal proceedings, we can provide official documentation. I appreciate that. I hung up and sat down heavily on the couch. Laxatives. Enough to cause serious distress. She tried to make someone sick, probably thinking I'd consumed the food despite the fasting instructions, or hoping that just the association with something harmful would damage my reputation. But it had backfired. The wrong person had eaten it, and Lumi had been cautious enough to avoid it entirely. Tessa had overreached, and now there was medical documentation to prove it. I sat there for a long time, thinking about what to do with this information. I could tell Evan, show him the proof that his girlfriend had deliberately tried to harm someone. I could tell Lumi, though she probably already suspected, or I could keep it to myself. Use it only if Tessa tried to challenge the eviction or spin her story publicly. I decided on the third option. The evidence was there if I needed it, but unless Tessa forced my hand, there was no point in spreading more pain. She was gone. That was enough. That night, Evan and I sat at the dinner table. Just the two of us. I'd made spaghetti, nothing fancy, and we ate in comfortable silence. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry I didn't see it. You weren't supposed to. That was her skill. Still, I should have listened to you." "You listened to your heart. That's not wrong." "Even when my heart was wrong. Even then. You'll learn from this." He pushed food around his plate. "What do I do now?" "You figure out what you want. Not what I want, not what she wanted. What you want." "I don't know what that is." "Then you take time to figure it out. No pressure, no rush." He nodded. We finished dinner, cleaned up together, and went our separate ways. I stood in my workshop later that night, looking at the tools I'd organized years ago. Everything in its place. Everything where it belonged. The house felt the same way now. Organized, clear, mine. I'd protected what was mine. I'd stood my ground. And I'd done it the right way. Tessa had tried to take something that wasn't hers, and she'd failed. The week that followed was strange. Not bad, exactly. Just different. The house felt bigger without Tessa's presence. Quieter, like it was breathing again after being held underwater. Evan moved through the days carefully, like someone recovering from an injury. He went to work, came home, ate dinner with me. We didn't talk much about what had happened. We didn't need to. The air had been cleared. On Wednesday, I got a call from Lumi. "Jared, I need to tell you something." "Go ahead." "Tessa's been staying with me since Sunday. I let her because she's my daughter, but I made it clear this is temporary." "Okay." "She's been making calls, talking to people. She's trying to build a story about what happened." "What kind of story?" "The kind where you're the villain, where she was just trying to help and you turned on her, where Evan is being manipulated by you." "I'd expected this." "Has she gained any traction?" "Some. People who don't know the full story are sympathetic, but anyone who asks for details gets shut down fast, because there are no details that support her version." "Exactly, but I wanted you to know. She's not done fighting." "I appreciate the warning. There's something else. The patient from the hospital. They're moving forward with a complaint." "Against Tessa?" "Yes. The hospital gave them the documentation. They're pursuing it through the county health department." I absorbed that. "How's Tessa handling it?" "Not well. She's claiming it was an accident, that she didn't know what she was doing. But the evidence is pretty clear." After we hung up, I sat in my workshop, thinking. Tessa was doing what I'd expected, spinning a narrative, playing the victim, but without facts to back her up, it wouldn't hold. The next day, I stopped by the county health department. The woman at the desk was helpful. "I'm Jared Ravel. I believe there's a complaint filed related to an incident at County General Hospital." She typed into her computer. "Yes, we have a case open. You're listed as a witness." "I delivered the food, but I didn't prepare it. I want to make sure my statement is on record." "It is. The hospital provided your documentation. You're not being investigated." "Thank you. I just wanted to confirm." She looked at me over her glasses. "Mr. Ravel, off the record, the person who prepared the food is in significant trouble. The evidence is very clear." I nodded and left feeling more secure. That weekend, Evan finally brought it up. We were in the garage, working on fixing a loose shelf. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you think she ever really loved me?" I set down the drill. This was the question I'd been dreading. "I think she loved the idea of you, and the idea of what your life could give her." "The house?" "Partly, but also the stability, the respectability, the image of having a good man who came from a solid family." He nodded slowly. "I feel stupid." "Don't. You trusted someone. That's not stupid. That's human." "But I defended her. I made you feel like you were the problem." "She was very good at framing things. That's not your fault." We finished the shelf in silence. Later that night, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Mr. Ravel, this is Patricia Vance from the County Mediation Office. I'm calling about a petition filed by Tessa Ward." My stomach tightened. "What kind of petition?" "She's requesting a mediation session regarding her residency at your property. She claims she was unlawfully evicted and is seeking compensation and the right to return." "She wasn't evicted. I gave her notice to vacate as a guest, which is completely legal. I understand. That's why we're offering mediation rather than moving to a formal hearing. Would you be willing to participate? When? Next Thursday at 2 p.m. I'll be there. After I hung up, I called my lawyer. She called back within an hour. Don't worry about the mediation. It's standard. Bring all your documentation. I will. And Jared? Don't go in angry. Go in factual. That's your strength. Thursday afternoon arrived with a light rain. I dressed carefully and drove to the county building downtown. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, the smell of stale coffee. Patricia Vance led me to a small conference room. Tessa was already there with a legal aid lawyer. She looked smaller somehow. Her eyes were red-rimmed, playing the victim. Patricia sat at the head of the table. Thank you both for coming. Ms. Ward, would you like to start? Tessa nodded. Her voice was soft, shaky. I lived in that house for over a year. I helped with expenses. And then, out of nowhere, Jared told me I had to leave. Did you have a lease? Patricia asked. No, but did you pay rent? I bought groceries. That's not the same as paying rent. Mr. Ravel, your turn. I opened my folder. Tessa Ward began staying at my house approximately 18 months ago as a guest. There was never a lease, never a rental agreement. She never paid rent or utilities. I pulled out the property title. I am the sole owner. The mortgage was paid off 4 years ago. I slid documents across the table. Utility bills, property tax records, all in my name. For the past 6 months, Ms. Ward has been systematically attempting to reposition herself as a decision-maker in my house. She has told neighbors I'm struggling and need to downsize, building a narrative that I should leave my own home. I pulled out the hospital documentation. On the morning of my medical test, Ms. Ward prepared food that I couldn't eat because I was required to fast. She insisted I take it to the hospital anyway. Within an hour, a patient became severely unwell. The hospital ran tests and found substances in the food that caused a strong physical reaction. Tessa went pale. That was an accident. You specifically asked me to tell your mother you made it special. Why? Her lawyer jumped in. This is speculation. The county health department is investigating, I said calmly. Tessa's face crumpled. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. The room went quiet. She'd essentially admitted there was something intentional about the food. Patricia looked up. Ms. Ward, based on what I'm hearing, you were a guest in Mr. Ravel's home. You had no lease, no rental agreement, and no legal claim to residency. Is that correct? But I lived there. As a guest. Mr. Ravel gave you 30 days' notice to vacate, which is more than required. Do you have any documentation that establishes you as a legal resident? Tessa's lawyer shuffled papers. We don't have formal documentation. Then I don't think you'd win in court, Patricia said. Here's my recommendation. Ms. Ward, you accept that you were a guest, not a tenant. You complete your move out by the deadline. Mr. Ravel, you agree not to pursue claims related to the hospital incident unless Ms. Ward continues to dispute the residency issue. That's not fair, Tessa said. Fair is debatable. Legal is not. Her lawyer whispered something to her. Tessa's shoulders sagged. Fine, she said quietly. I'll be out by the deadline. Good. Mr. Ravel? Agreed. Patricia typed into her computer. I'll file this as resolved. Any questions? Neither of us spoke. Then we're done. I stood, gathering my documents. Tessa remained seated, staring at the table, her face a mask of defeat. Outside, the rain had stopped. I walked to my truck and sat behind the wheel for a moment. It was done. Really done. I drove home. Evan was in the living room. How'd it go? It's over. The mediation ruled in my favor. She has no claim to the house. He let out a long breath. So she's really gone? Yeah, she's really gone. We ordered pizza that night. Sat on the couch watching a game. It felt normal. Easy. Later, I stood in my workshop, looking at the tools I'd organized over the years. Everything in its place. The house felt the same way now. Ordered, clear, mine. I'd protected what was mine. I'd stood my ground, and I'd won. Not with rage, not through force, with preparation, with records, with calm, deliberate action. Tessa had underestimated me. She'd thought I was passive, easy to push aside. She'd been wrong. I walked through the house one final time that night. Every room felt lighter. In the kitchen, I stood at the window, looking out at the dark yard. Tessa had tried to erase me from my own home, and I'd stopped her. The mediation was the final acknowledgement that she had no claim, no right, no place here. I turned off the kitchen light and headed to my room, my house, my space, my victory.